Hey, this is
Kirk.
this is Bird. I was getting ready to say this is Kirk and Bird, but no, this is the Kirk and Bird show, and we are blessed to have with us two Prince William County sports nuts. So first we got the godfather of Prince William County sports, Jay Gholson, aka I'll explain a little later, Charles B. Oakley. And we got the professor, UVA's own Brian Westhoff. He's got formulas and all types of stuff that he got concocted to tell us where we are in the playoff rankings
The professor
and points. The professor.
Jay has got to be Gilligan.
And
Jay is Gilligan.
We need a ticker on how many times I correct Jay, right? We should have that up in the upper quarter.
Look, and my former co-defensive coordinator
Oh!
for Benton, when we won the championship back in 2018, undefeated.
So,
Wow.
For everybody,
a lot of those kids are playing high school now. So,
yep.
But for the folks in Prince William County and Commonwealth of Virginia, this is like your first take for high school football. So we're going to talk about the schools in Prince William County as we have been doing. And by the way, we need to do this every week, guys. But we're going to talk about the athletes. We're going to talk about the power rankings. We're getting ready to be in the playoffs, so it's an exciting time. So if you're down in Prince William, if you cover high school football, if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're one of the athletes, why don't you subscribe to us? Hit the bell icon. We don't ask many people to do that, but you'll get a reminder that we got a new video out. So, with that being said, Rusty, how do we feel about, by the way, my phone vibrated 250 times because we had a group text going on about the power rankings in this past weekend. So, we're going to turn it over to, because you guys are masterful.
Well, first, what I'd like us to do is just quickly, can we just give a summary of some of the games of this past weekend?
Okay.
This past weekend. So we'll start out, and so we'll review very quickly, and then we'll preview.
Okay.
All right, Jay, you want to any stand out to you?
Two games. First one, Freedom and Whitbridge. Now Whitbridge came. They were not scared. They came out ready to play. In fact, their special teams was better than Freedom's. Opening kickoff, they went 70 yards. Whitbridge did.
Wow.
Of course, Freedom defense, they don't break.
Right.
And Tristan Evans, a quarterback, he threw 7 touchdown passes. 7 touchdown passes. For the year, he has 34 touchdown passes. Now, I'm not saying he's Ronald Curry. Ronald Curry had 70 touchdown passes in his whole career.
Right.
Tristan has 34 in 8 games. So if he goes to the state championship this year and next year, it might be 60, 50.
Jay, you look at the past 4 quarterbacks for Freedom. The numbers they put up is insane. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's all.
Now you do have Cam Courtney at receiver. You have EJ Reed. You have Juju Preston. So they have 3 Division I receivers. And so that helps out a lot for that. That second game that was really good, what surprised me, was Osborne Park and Freedom South Riding.
Okay.
15-0. And that says Osborne Park, they're like 1-7 or 1-7. To go down there and play and only lose by
1-6.
Huh? 1-6?
They're 1-6.
Okay. To play Freedom South Riding that tough, that's really impressed me. Only 15-0. So that was a good game. And of course, the last one more game. I know I said 2, but 3 actually that impressed me was Osborne and Patriot.
Okay.
Yeah, Osborne. I mean, it was close in the beginning. I think it was 7-0 at the half, favor of Patriot. But of course, at the end, Patriot, with their running back, And also, of course, San Fernandez did very well running the ball, and they won like about I think three scores. Yeah.
35-14. It was
Yeah.
21-14 going in the fourth quarter. So it was a little bit tight.
Ooh.
I think it was a couple defensive scores by Patriot and special teams. Gabe took one to the house. So
yeah. Well, Gabe Bigby is Gabe Bigby. I mean, he's going to do that in every game. But yeah, those 3 games really caught my attention.
The other thing, Jay, that stuck out to me, like Patriot and Osborne was a tight game, leading up into the fourth quarter, and then Patriot pulled away. Same thing with Battlefield and Unity Reed. It was 10-7 heading into the fourth quarter, and then Battlefield.
Well, I thought you were going to bring up Jay.
Took over the fourth quarter and won 23-7. So both of them continue to be undefeated, and both had relatively tight games, but pulled away in the end. So
I mean, I said, 3 teams
in week 11.
Yeah, 3 teams who are undefeated, and Prince William County. You have Freedom, Patriot, Battlefield, and they're going nowhere. I mean, it's going to be interesting. The point structure going on. Actually, the biggest game though was Colonial Forge beating undefeated Massaponax.
Mountain View.
No. Mountain View.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Mountain View. And Mountain View, in my opinion, for the whole state, the top 3. Because you have Highland Springs, you have Freedom, and Mountain View. Those were my top 3 before last week for the state of Virginia, for all schools. And for them that lose to Colonial Forge, that's going to be, like I said before, you can be a 6-4 team. Sorry, Brian, I know this is your section, but you can be a 6-4 team and stay home for the playoffs. It's possible.
Yeah. Well, that puts Stonebridge at a home field advantage. Hold on.
Yeah, you're right. For Division 5.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay.
So I know, and we'll go on to if Brian has one. But I will say this: I thought that Colgan showed a lot of resilience in coming back after a tough loss the week before to beat Hilton, and so I give those kids a lot of credit for 38-0 over Hilton. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was a well played game. I thought the teams were respectful, and I just thought it was a good game for Colgan to now have a 3rd win, which means they've won more games this season than they had won over the previous 3 years. So
to me, for Colgan, to me, it was also a life lesson. You can have a bad day at work, and not quit, and you win the next day.
Right.
Yeah. Colgan to me, it was a life lesson for not only kids but for adults.
Yeah. So, guys, tell us. So, before we preview this week's coming games, we're going to turn it over to the professor. Now, the Inside Nova published the Region B power ratings, but Brian, why don't you tell us what you have? Did yours match up before this was published? Like, were you writing?
And actually, Inside Nova, that would have been before this past weekend's game. So
okay.
Released Monday at noon.
Okay.
We ran the numbers this weekend, and I can kind of go through them quickly. So Freedom still has the number 1 ranking. They've pulled ahead. I think it's almost 2.5 points or so. I mean, their gaps is widening between Battlefield and Patriot and Freedom.
Right.
They'll be able to close that gap, assuming if Battlefield and Patriot both finish 9-0 and they play each other, someone's going to beat 10-0 as well. They'll close that gap and get some more bonus points, but it looks almost pretty certain Freedom, unless they trip up somehow, they're going to get the number 1 seed. You got Battlefield and Patriot. Battlefield's the 2 seed right now. Patriot's the 3 seed. They're pretty tight, and it's setting up a last week's showdown between those two. So you really kind of have 1, 2, and 3 together. And then 4 and 5, 4 right now is John Champ. They're rolling. They're 5-2. They had that tough loss against Battlefield a couple of weeks ago, but they got Osborne, Patriot, and Freedom South Riding coming up. So a tough matchup with Patriot, but they are kind of taking hold of that number 4 spot. And then you got 5 with Colonial Forge. That win that they had against Mountain View really kind of catapulted
lots
them
of points.
In the ratings. They're 4-3 right now. seeded number 5. Plus, their strength of schedule with some of their losses is tremendous. I mean, they've lost to Highland Springs, they've lost to Stonebridge, so they're going to continue to get bonus points, throughout the remainder of the season. So you kind of have 1, 2, and 3 with Battlefield Patriot. You got John Champ and Colonial Forge at 4 and 5. And then all of a sudden you have a jam-packed bunch of teams with 4 and 4, 3 and 4, 4 and 3. They're all kind of together. So you got Forest Park at number 6, Unity Reed at 7, and Freedom South Riding at 8. Okay. And right behind that, remember, top 8 make the playoffs. Right behind that, you got Garfield, Osborne, Potomac, Colgan, and Woodbridge, all jam-packed right behind.
All still in the running, dude. They got a lot to play.
All still in the running.
Yeah.
So really, if you look at the rankings, 6 through 13, okay, so those teams, they're all jam-packed together and they all play each other over the next 3 weeks. So you can almost think of the next 3 weeks as every single game's a playoff game. If you're one of those teams that is ranked 6 through 13 right now and you lose, you're probably not going to make the playoffs. So you basically got to run the table and win to make the playoffs. Jay, I think in looking at the numbers and running some projections, I think if you get to 6 wins, you're going to make the playoffs. I really don't see many scenarios where a 6 and 4 team can sit out. The one scenario that I do see, and for you Forest Park fans, a 5 and 5 Forest Park can make the playoffs ahead of a 6 and 4 team. If Colgan or Woodbridge or something were to run the table,
that's mathematical, Jay.
Schedule they have. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. But the one thing, too, I've seen a little bit of chatter around Forest Park trying to get that 4 or 5 seed. I really don't think the numbers are possible to make that happen. I think they're kind of falling in 6 to 7, somewhere around there.
What you got to see with Forest Park is they have a really tough schedule. They played Patriot, they played Mountain View, they played Woodgrove.
Wow,
and who was the other non-district game?
Oh, non-district. Okay.
Non-district. I forget, but they've played because every time Mountain View wins, every time Woodgrove.
They lost to Briarwood as well.
They lost to Briarwood.
What do they have left?
They're like 6 or 5 and 3 or something like that. So
yeah. Who do they have?
They have Colgan and Hilton.
Yes. Forest Park has a bye week this week, and they got 2 remaining games: Colgan and Hilton. Okay, so
that should be a good game.
Yeah, so that Colgan game is one that is kind of circled for a handful of teams because that's going to affect a lot of jockeying for position. Again, I mean, it especially in the Cardinal district, you got Forest Park, Garfield, Potomac, Colgan, and Woodbridge all jam-packed together, and they all play each other over the next 3 weeks. So it's basically a playoff game.
Question: how can a 7 and 3 Colonial Forge team be a 3 seed?
They won't, unless Battlefield or unless do we have to go through this again, Jay? Unless Battlefield Patriot has 2 losses, there's no way Colonial Forge is going to jump up to a 3 seed. It's just it's almost if you have a 1 difference in win losses. So let's say 7 and 3 and 8 and 2. It's possible for that 7 and 3 team to be above it. A 7 and 3 team is really never going to be above a 9 and 1 team. The same thing can be said for Forest Park. 5 and 5 Forest Park can be ahead of a 6 and 4 Woodbridge or a 6 and 4 Colgan or something like that. But if it's more than 1 loss, you're not going to be able to get above them in the seedings.
Where is the Battlefield Patriot game?
November 4th.
Where is it?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I want to say actually it's at Battlefield.
Okay. And that's we should be
just to remind everyone, remember how the PowerPoints work. It's win-losses, so you get points for your wins or your losses, and it's the performance of your opponents that you beat or lost to. Okay?
Right.
So if you beat an opponent, you get 2 bonus points for every win that they have. If you lose to an opponent, for every win that they have, you get 1 bonus point. So really what that means is if you're a fan of any of the 16 teams in Region B, you also got to pay attention to it's like 20 plus other teams that are out of that region and how they perform each week. Like Osborne picked up a bonus point this past weekend because Jackson Reed and DC had a win, right? So like
Yeah.
you literally got to watch the scoreboard for a bunch of teams that you probably don't even know anything about. So
Yeah.
So I do want to point something out. When we did that Prince William Sports and Entertainment season preview, I go back to what I said. I said, I know this is Prince William County show, but do not count out those two Loudoun County schools.
yeah.
I said, do not count them out. And now when I look at, and we said this a few weeks ago, Jay, the Cedar Run District has 60, if the season stopped today, has 6 teams out of the top 8. And the team that would make the playoffs if it stopped right now. That tells you that, and I said it, like that to me is probably, I don't know, you tell me, wouldn't that be probably the toughest district in the state looking at that?
Oh, yeah, because you have 3 teams. Well, never mind. 2 teams are undefeated. 1 team lost 2 games, right? John Champ. So those 3 alone, that's you know, yeah.
And
I mean,
Unity Reed
beat Westfield
in Region D in Westfield, right? So
yeah,
number 1 seed Westfield.
Yeah.
So,
the one thing to note, Rusty, when you bring up Freedom South Riding, the 3 remaining games they have on their schedule right now, they're seeded number 8. The 3 remaining games they have on their schedule are tough. They have Patriot coming up this week, then Unity Reed, then John Champ. So I mean, they're going to have to really kind of, win some games here to keep that 8 seed intact. Otherwise, teams like Garfield or whoever could overtake them.
Colgan
yeah,
has a shot too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If we win out, we should be in.
Well, that's the other thing, Rusty. I was just going to say, put out there is you guys will be at the Battlefield game, Patriot Battlefield, because that's the last game of the season. I'm going to go down to Oscar Smith and Phoebus. So follow us on Twitter at the Kirk and Bird, and we'll be tweeting that whole game. So that whole weekend. Yeah. So that's going to be fun. And those 2 games intersect because Division 6, almost everybody in Prince William County, with the exception of Brentsville, is Division 6. And the 2 teams, I don't want to jump ahead, but those will have ramifications. So, So we talked about the playoff scenario. All right, anybody want to? So, Brian, you extrapolated out and made some projections, and I was looking at those. Anybody want to make a call now on what they think the final 8 will be winning out? I saw your extrapolation, Brian. Why don't you go ahead and go with it? But, it's got the top 3 seeds.
Really, kind of what I did was I ran projections. All the non-Region B teams, I kind of just, for the most part, just did chalk, right? Whoever would be favored. An upset here and there for the most part. I think what I'm looking at, Freedom will be 1, okay? Whoever wins between Battlefield and Patriot, assuming Patriot beats Champ, is going to take the 2 seed and the loser takes the 3 seed. So I think that's probably the way it's going to play out.
Yep.
I have Champ at 4, Unity Reed at 5, and Colonial Forge at 6. Colonial Forge plays a tough Riverbend coming up in the last 3 weeks. So if they lose there, I think they fall to the 6th seed. So Freedom, Battlefield or Patriot, Champ at 4, Unity Reed 5, Colonial Forge 6. Forest Park, I think, has 7 kind of in the bag. If they have 2 games left, assuming they win 1, go 1-1, they're in at number 7, even if they finish 5-5. So let's say Colgan pulls off an upset and beats Forest Park, right? I think Forest Park still will maintain that 7 seed and playoffs at 5-5. So really, what that leaves is Colgan, Osborne, and Garfield and Woodbridge fighting for that 8th spot. If Colgan wins out, they're in. If Woodbridge wins out, they're in. If Garfield wins out, they're in. I mean, that's basically the way it's going to play out. So that 8th seed, the Cardinal Run District teams that are not Forest Park, if they run the table, then they will get that 8th seed.
What's your call?
The short straw of playing Freedom.
Right.
They'll make the playoff.
Who are you predicting then for that 8th seed?
Colgan.
Colgan. All right.
I'm a little biased, but we'll see how it's really. I mean, they got a big game against Woodbridge coming up, and I think it'll be a tight one. And then if they're successful in that, they got they got Forest Park coming up. So
Jay, who do you like?
I like Freedom number 1, Battlefield number 2, Patriot number 3, John Champ number 4,
Okay.
Colonial Forge, Bill Brown, my coach in high school, number 5.
Unity
And I
Reed.
have Forest Park number 6.
Ooh. Wow.
And Colgan Sharks, number 8. Making a
Okay.
comeback.
All right. Rusty, you got to pick Colgan. You're in the doghouse if you don't, man.
you got a little bit of an unbalanced panel here.
Woodbridge.
Yeah, Brian and my son are senior captains on the team.
Well, Jay and I are Potomac alums, so we picked against Potomac. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
But let me say this: I think Colgan can definitely win. Now, I think kind of like his one model. I would say Freedom, Battlefield, Patriot, Champ, Unity Reed, Colonial Forge, Forest Park, Colgan. So I say that, and that's what I hope, and that's what I think will happen. But let me get you guys' opinion on what is your top 5 Prince William County schools. So we're not talking Colonial Forge or the Loudoun schools. Your top 5 Prince William County, which would include Brentsville.
Okay, I'll go first on that one. Number 5, as of right now, I would pick Colgan. Number 4, I pick Brentsville. Number 3, Patriot. 2, Battlefield, and 1, Freedom.
Okay.
What about you, Brian?
I'd go 5 Brentsville, and one of these days I got to pull the sheet together for class 3. But so number 5 Brentsville, I would go 4 Forest Park. I think Colgan can win, but it will be an upset. I think Forest Park would be favored. I'm going to say 4. Actually, I'm skipping Unity Reed. Unity Reed. I think Unity Reed and Forest Park would be tight. Let me call them 4 and 5, I guess. I'm going to go Battlefield 3, Patriot 2. I'd give Patriot a slight edge. I think it's going to be a whale of a game, and then 4-1. I think the distance from Freedom to Battlefield and Patriot's pretty good. Not to say Battlefield and Patriot can't pull off a win, but Freedom's rolling.
All right, Rusty.
Okay. So my top 5, where we sit today, number 5, Forest Park, because they've played a rough schedule, and right now they are 4-4, having played that extremely difficult schedule. Then I've got Brentsville number 4, Battlefield 3, Patriot 2, and Freedom 1.
One thing about Brentsville is they played nobody this year, and they've played all teams with losing records. And one team they played with a winning record, Kettle Run, they beat them pretty good. So I have top number 4. My concern is they play teams in the playoffs. It might be a challenge playing a good team when you play all bad teams.
But that's their region. Like, they're going to play those bad teams like they did last year and get to the state semis against Phoebus. Like,
and then what happens there?
It's just right. Well, they were
Jordan Bass and
a regional championship is a regional championship. When you come back 20 years later, that banner's hanging.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it'll also be the second time they're there, so it's not like it's an unknown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the same 5 as you, Rusty, so that's easy. And it's not because I didn't think about it. I just happen to have the same 5. I will say this: I think Woodbridge is the team to probably take that 8th seed. So,
however, they've not beaten a team with a winning record. Woodbridge has not.
Well, another litmus test, Jay, is how they played against Freedom Woodbridge. So,
okay,
you can learn something in a loss. So I think that'll be good. But I was going to say, Rusty, let's go to the region playoffs. Let's go ahead and make some. I mean, this is fun, right? Is make some predictions based on what we picked as seeds. So we're looking at. We'll pick our 8th seed because this is top 7. So we're talking about Freedom playing Colgan, or
or Woodridge or Garfield.
All right, does anybody
so let's do this. Who do we think will be the teams in the regional finals? Because that's 3 games you got to get through. I'm trying to figure it out. Who do you think will be standing for the regional final? The winner gets the chance to play Oscar Smith.
Or Thomas Dale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could be Western Branch. I mean,
yeah.
There's some teams down there that are, Oscar Smith is answering the call. But going back to here, I'll start it off. I like Freedom playing Patriot. I want to take Freedom playing Patriot. I think Patriot. So those are my finals. Freedom, Woodbridge, and Patriot. There we go. So Battlefield, there's some bulletin board material for you.
Well, I'm going with Freedom versus Battlefield. I think Battlefield will beat Patriot because they have their number.
That's a good pick too. Yeah.
Yeah, they have their number, and we have Caleb Woodson,
but it's hard to beat somebody twice. Well, they got to end up playing each other twice.
3 times. Rusty, 3 times.
They all have to play twice.
Last year they played 3. This
year they would have to play twice.
You can't play anyone.
Last year they played 3 times.
1 in regular season and then 1 in the playoffs if they make it to the semis.
Battlefield, they don't break. I mean, they know how to win. I see them, against John Champ on the ropes. They just figure it out like Oscar Smith. They figure out how to win in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been able to see the kid going to Virginia Tech yet, so I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, he is a man among boys. He is, in my opinion, the best defensive back in the state of Virginia. Caleb Woodson.
Yeah, I saw all those.
He's big too. I didn't realize he was that big till I saw him.
6'3". He can hit. Yeah.
So, what about you, Brian? Who do you think is going to be in that regional final? Who would you project?
Freedom and Patriot. I'm going to go with Patriot. I think this is Patriot's year. I just think they're coming together. Very senior-led team. I think they're going to get a win against Battlefield.
Yeah.
This is what I said. I said this in a group text.
Go ahead.
I said it in a group text. I think if Freedom can beat Battlefield. But if Freedom plays Patriot, and depending on the conditions, the weather, the health of Freedom and both teams, if that game is close, because Patriot has had to play some close games, Freedom has not. And this has happened to Freedom in the past. When it's a close game, do they start turning on you? Do they start fussing? Do they know how to deal with that? Sometimes it's good to have that challenge. Yep. I think if it's Patriot Freedom, I think Patriot can win. But I think if Freedom wins, they win the whole thing. Once they get out of that game and because that's the regional, I think they would win the state semis and would win the state championship.
You see,
they have to play Region A, right, in the semis? Yeah. So that would be the Oscar Smith, Thomas
Dale. Yep.
The difference between this year and last year for Freedom is one person, T.J. Bush. He is the one person last year. We didn't have that last year at Battlefield, and they just ransacked our D line. T.J. Bush on the defense, he is the one that's going to take Freedom to the next level against Patriot or Battlefield. He's a difference maker for Freedom.
That's a good point.
Wholeheartedly agree, Jay. I mean, seeing it up and close on the Colgan game, I know he was giving my son fits. He was all over my son every single play. He was a man amongst boys.
Yeah.
He blocked the punt that led to a touchdown and everything. Yeah, he's a great player and a good kid, really good kid. Kirk, did you have any thoughts?
Well, I was just going to say that a team that hasn't really been challenged, they get tight at their challenge. I think that tends to hold more in basketball. You're 1 seed, 2 seeds, and 3 seeds. So I will say this: if there's one team that could cause an upset. Now, it's a team with a lot of skill, but maybe not brawn, is, I believe, John Champ. And I know that's not Prince William County, but they're in the region.
No, I
Right.
agree.
So
I agree.
If you watch, that's
if you look at their quarterback stats, I
Patrick
think
Ryan.
he's leading the region in passing.
He's leading the
Above
state.
Kempton.
He was leading. He was to the top
it's
of
like
the state.
real tight.
Private school is a private school.
Those are the max prep stats, though. Not every school. I know Freedom doesn't put their stats in max prep, so you kind of have to take those with a little bit of grain of salt. But he absolutely is at the top of the state.
So Brian, Jay and I were at that game, and I'm telling you, I said it then. I said, when you looked at our schedule, if you just before the season started, if you're thinking old school, these teams, Loudoun County, if you were thinking of Champ from the last few years or Freedom South Riding from the last few years, you're like, they're just we should, those are the chances games we can win. Nobody knew Champ was going to be that good, and after in the game, Jay and I were there. You were on the field. You go, golly, Champ is. But no, I said after the game, I said, no, Champ is legit.
They are,
and it proved out. So in retrospect, we might have been like, we lost the Champ. No, we lost the Champ. They were good.
That's a complex offense they run too. I've watched them, and that quarterback can play. I don't know what offers he has, but he's going places. I see it on Twitter. He's going to be a good one. He's one of those that reminds me of Mitch Griffiths, who was about 5'11". And if Mitch Griffiths would have been 6'4", he probably would have been recruited by everybody. And I think Patrick Bryan's going to be a heck of a FCS or Division II. Very athletic, and can sling it. But
he's really accurate too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He reads defenses, man. They're running complicated stuff. So all right, let's extrapolate into the state, and let's talk about. So Brian, I think we've pretty much hashed it out. I don't think Oscar Smith can play at home. I mean, if everything plays out, they're going to play up here, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Freedom right now is 35.8 or projected 35.8 rating. That's a really, really high rating. So I think it's going to be a home game for Freedom if they make it through the region.
Right. Okay.
And because the big thing, and Jay keeps saying this, is that Oscar Smith only has 9 games. So even if they run a table, Freedom runs a table, they just don't have those extra points. And Brian explained that on our last episode. What about
the other regions? What about the other regions in 6? So you got. We were talking about this week. We were talking about Centerville
and lost,
and not McLean. Madison. Madison's kind of all over the place. So who's going to come out of the other regions?
Right now, let's do Region D. The top 4 teams right now. It's Westfield. This is after this weekend's games. Westfield, Centerville, Herndon, and Madison. Okay, so
they all in the same.
That doesn't sound like the other, right? Herndon, remember, they lost 28 games in a row heading into this season in the first 2 weeks, and they have now won 5 in a row.
Good for
them. The head coach there is in his second year. He came from Catholic. I mean, that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
If they can keep going. But so you got Westfield, Centerville, Herndon, and Madison for Region D.
I like Westfield.
And then in C, we've is the number 1 team.
You have Lake
South
Braddock.
County.
Lake Braddock and Fairfax is 1 and 2, and they play this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
7 okay. West Springfield is 4. South County 5, Robinson, or South County 4, Robinson 5. So Lake Braddock, Fairfax, West Springfield, South County, Robinson.
All right, Fairfax.
I'll go with Fairfax based on what I've heard.
Yeah.
I want to preface that with that. I have not watched them play, so. And Braddock.
And I'm a little biased, so if Jordan Dennis is healthy, I got South County coming out of it. He was my quarterback in the championship. Okay, so look, guys, and then the last thing, and we'll wrap this up. We're doing. It got some good timing. I don't know if you've pulled. I've got Max Prep up, but who do we think are the top 10 teams in the state, regardless of classification?
Top 10,
and if you can't, top 10, and if you don't know who everybody, it's like, who do you think some of the top 10 teams are? I will. So I'll give you an example. I will say what Max Prep says, and if you want to make any adjustments. So number 1, they have Highland Springs. Number 2, Freedom. Number 3, Oscar Smith. Number 4, Dinwiddie. Number 5, Liberty Christian. That's the private school from Lynchburg area that FIBA's beating the championship. Maury at 6. Trinity Episcopal from Richmond. They're 7-0. Varina, defending 4th champion. Stonebridge, defending 5 champion. And then Thomasdale is 7-0 at number 10. Do you see anything in there that may need to be adjusted?
Battlefield wasn't on that list.
They got Phoebus at 11. And
Phoebus
Battlefield is 13.
Man, that's a joke. Phoebus at 11. Phoebus will roll over a bunch of those teams. So, yeah, I'll go through mine. Go ahead, Jay. Who you like?
Well, that list sounds pretty good, except
For a bunch of people that aren't feet on the ground and talking to people and watching film.
Oh, no, but hold on, Kirk. Who are you saying Phoebus is better than? Because I think of those 10, the one I would move down is the team they beat in the state championship. But outside of that, those other teams are really good.
Let me pull it up.
Because nobody's going to argue with Highland Springs, Freedom, Oscar Smith, all right, Varina, Stonebridge.
Well, I'll get to that, but let the other guys go. Let me.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I would that list. I mean, I like Highland Springs number 1, Freedom number 2. Yes. Liberty Christian. I will admit, I would put Phoebus above them.
What are they, class 3? Is that
3? They're 3. Mm-hmm.
3, but they can ball. They can ball. But I would also.
That was the offensive lineman that committed to
UNC. Zach Rice. He's at UNC.
That one hurt as a UVA alum.
And maybe, like I said, I would have in that list, somewhere in that list, in the top 10, Battlefield. Not top 5.
That's the one thing that stuck out at me. It's interesting to me that they have Stonebridge in the top 10.
Yeah. I see
Battlefield. And I feel like Stonebridge is a little bit just based on past history because Stonebridge they aren't as strong as they have been in the last few years.
They've struggled in some of those wins.
Yeah. I would put Phoebus above Stonebridge.
Yeah, I put Phoebus above Stonebridge.
Yeah.
I would definitely put Phoebus in there. I would also have Patriot somewhere probably right around there looming. And then I'm not high on Maury. And my nephew and nieces
Hey, Rusty, what's the top region C or D team in the rankings?
So the first one you get to is actually not in the top 10. The first one you get to is Lake Braddock at 18.
Ooh.
18. Think about that, though. That means they're saying 17 teams are better than any Northern Virginia team. And I somewhat count our county as Northern Virginia, but your Fairfax County and North, that's interesting.
No respect.
But I have said this before. This is, and again, as a high school referee for over 25 years, and I've seen how this has changed. And following high school football, the advantage Fairfax has is they're just playing each other to get there. Maybe not as tough a team, and it's only one game. Once they get there, anything can happen. Now, I didn't think Madison was that good, but they kept winning last year, and they beat some traditionally good teams. But all they had to do was get there, and you never know once they're there. You know, if you get that one shot, I'm just saying.
Did I hear you guys say?
You never
Hold
know.
on a second. Hold on. However, Madison versus Oscar Smith last year, South County versus Oscar Smith the year before was both blowouts.
Right.
Okay, so that's why Fairfax, that thing about, any
given. But who won it the year before that? South County won it.
Yeah,
and Westfield won 3 years
you and I have
in a
had
row.
this conversation before. If you start picking off who won across a 15-year period, Northern Virginia is represented pretty well. I mean, you got Centerville winning championships, you got Westfield winning multiple championships.
You got three of the regions almost guaranteed to. You're gonna. One of the things I didn't hear anybody say Dinwiddie.
They're good.
They're number 4.
Okay. Because let's do this.
Yeah, they had them in the top 10.
I like Highland Springs. They're men. I'm sorry, but Freedom, until they do it, I'm going to go with Oscar Smith, number 2.
Ah, come on, man.
Well, you say come on. Freedom has not won anything. All right, when Freedom, all right, when they bust Oscar Smith in the mouth, Oscar Smith's going to spit out a tooth and say, "All right, knock the rest of my teeth out." I'm not saying Freedom can't win.
Kirk, I think Coach Overton would probably say the same thing because you saw.
Of course he would. Of course he
said
would.
Battlefield is the champ until someone takes him down. Not to say he's not confident they can't beat him, but like that's the mentality he has, right? Like they're the champ.
I am picking. Yeah, I'm picking those. I'm picking Freedom to win that region, and I like Oscar Smith. But let's go back. I like Highland Springs. I like Oscar Smith. I like Freedom. And then after that, I actually would probably, I like Dinwiddie. They've always had good traditional program. I agree with you with Maury, but how about Green Run, undefeated, beat a good Kempsville team?
That's who
down there.
I had this discussion with my brother, who's a big Maury fan. I said Maury needed a trick play to beat Green Run last year.
Right.
I think Green Run should be ranked higher than Maury. Maury, first of all, they only have one loss, but it's to that team Byrne from North Carolina, and they're pretty good. They're big. Yep. They ran all over. But Maury only plays 8 games this year, and I tend to think that district they're in is pretty weak, or not as good as it has been in the past. Lake Taylor was their really only real challenge, but I think that they're going to probably meet Green Run in the regional final, and I just think Green Run would come out of that region. I think Stonebridge is going to come out of their region, but Stonebridge, I don't think they're going to get past Highland Springs.
They won't. You're right.
I don't think they will either. However,
but go ahead, Kurt.
No, I mean, who should have won last year?
Let me say this. I think the thing about Freedom is this. To me, they could lose to Patriot, they could lose Battlefield, but I got to give them credit. Like, they have played a great schedule. They beat a Riverbend team that does Riverbend have any other loss?
Nothing.
Riverbend has one loss, right? To Freedom.
Yep. Riverbend is to Freedom. So that's a
whatever.
legit good team, right? They're 6-1. They beat Stonebridge, a 2-time defending champion. That's their only loss. Like, they're playing. They put it on DeMatha. And so when you say, I don't know, Kurt, I'm just saying I saw for myself what they did to DeMatha showed me that they can. If they can play with DeMatha like that.
Just look at right now. The number 1 Region D team is Westfield. Unity Reed beat Westfield. Right. Freedom beat Unity Reed 42-0. Like, I just think Freedom's on another level this year. Now it's kind of like my college with UVA breaking through the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final 4. Eventually, they broke through. I think Freedom's kind of the same kind of concept right now.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well, it is going to be exciting. Because we're coming down, and a lot of people have things, a lot of teams have something to play for, and so I think going forward, but that in Prince William County, the winner of the Battlefield Patriot should be the number 2 seed, but coming back, that's a tough one because your 2 and 3 seeds are going to play each other in the regional semifinals, which is the state quarterfinals. That could be a Battlefield Patriot rematch. And then, I don't see Freedom losing.
I think we're going to learn a lot, though. If Champ is the 4th seed and they play Freedom in the second round, that style of play is going to be very similar to a Patriot Battlefield. So let's see what Champ can do with Freedom.
Don't forget about Freedom and Stonebridge, though. That's scored, too. I realize Freedom handled that, but Stonebridge scored more than once, and Freedom only puts 30-some points up. So if you guys are going to say, well, Stonebridge is not the normal Stonebridge, which those are the years Mickey goes a long way. But I would say that when you brought up a good point, Rusty. All right, when things get tight and teams, are okay. Like, oh, have we seen this before? I think the quarters and the semis of the states should be very interesting. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, guys, you have been great. I appreciate you all joining us today. The godfather of Prince William County sports, Jay Gholson, former Potomac football star and announcer for
Lester Hayes.
Right. Okay. That was clearly a jersey nobody else wanted, so they gave it to Jay. That's like when you're a freshman and you're playing and they just give you anything, like or in the NFL and you're in camp, it's not the number you want. You're a free agent and you're just like here, but you roll with it. I give you credit. I was 35 in the 10th grade on my varsity jersey, but I eventually got my 14. So look. So Jay Gholson knows his Prince William County, and Brian Westhoff, also a native Potomac grad, great football coach, great dad, great photographer, and a UVA grad who got his own formulas, even better than the VHSL.
Right.
So thank you, Brian Westhoff, with that UVA education and Prince William County public school education, bro. You have represented as well, while us two dummies went to Hampton City Schools.
All right.
No.
We're going to do Loudoun County tomorrow night. All right. So if anybody's still listening, we're going to do Loudoun County. And one little tidbit, we're not going to go off on a tangent. Welcome to Division I FBS football, JMU. Georgia Southern stayed right there. And I'm excited about JMU. They're getting all that hype. But I will say this. That's the way it goes. You got a target on you. And once they put in that other side of the stadium, really going to have it. So down in Norfolk, that ODU JMU game is the unfortunate.
ODU beat Coastal.
I know.
Beat Coastal.
And
that was a great game.
Whipped them. Coastal was undefeated, I believe, weren't they?
I'm telling you, the
Right.
Sun Belt is right there with the ACC.
Georgia Southern. Yep.
Outside of Clemson.
All right.
Outside of Clemson.
And there's a great game next week, and we're going to close because we'll start talking about college football. Syracuse is playing Clemson. Syracuse undefeated. This is the best Syracuse. They were tied for 87, which was my freshman year, when Virginia Tech was whipping them in Lane Stadium. That's when Don McPherson was the quarterback, finished fourth in the Heisman. This is their best start ever. So, boom. I like Syracuse over Clemson. So, anyway, Loudoun County tomorrow night. And then and by the way, when we reconvene next week, Jay and Brian, we're going to have a much clearer picture with just one game, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So we should be able to, with the playoffs and things like that. So.
Well, let's see. We may need to wait 2 weeks, so it's like everybody's really waiting to get the updates. We'll see. Maybe next week, but I don't want to wear this out because we got the whole.
You just let me know when. I'll have the spreadsheets ready.
I think we can do next week, but in 2 weeks, people will be like, "Ooh, what is going on? What does the professor have to say?"
The professor,
and so and I know we'll get much more, regular with the playoffs. But thanks, guys. You have been great. I appreciate it. This has been Brian Westhoff, Jay Gholson on the Kirk and Bird Show. We are out.